Our guest today on Caribbeana is Dr. Ralph Henry, who is from Trinidad and Tobago. And let Ralph tell us what
Yeah.
you do. You're like a social activist. Tell us what you do.
Well, right now, and since 1998, I have worked with a company full time that I was involved in helping to establish. In 1990, seven of us who then worked at the University of West Indies, we established Kyrie Consultants. And I continued being a university lecturer until 1998.
Right.
And in January 1998, I left the university and have been working full time with Kyrie Consultants. As Kyrie Consultants is basically a consulting group that is Caribbean in focus and sees itself as providing consultancy services to countries of the South,
Right. Right.
starting with the Caribbean,
Right.
but of course, thinking of other countries of the South. And we have done work right across the region. We have, I have, in fact, done work in almost every country in the English speaking Caribbean,
Right.
except maybe for the US Virgin Islands and the British Virgin Islands, but almost everywhere else I've worked, including in Haiti,
Right.
for a brief stint in Haiti.
Right. Right.
And from Suriname right up across the Bahamas to Belize and so on, right?
Right. Yeah.
And we have also done work in Southern Africa, in Botswana, in Lesotho, in South Africa itself. And we have had groups that I went not while I was not myself involved, but we have had work done work in Malawi.
Right. 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 Well, obviously, you would have seen and understood the problem of poverty, which has manifested itself throughout a lot of these countries. But
For
before
sure.
we approach that topic, Trinidad
Mm-hmm.
and Tobago has just uh, experienced its Republican Day, its Republic Day, um,
Mm-hmm.
and what's your view on that experience? Um,
Mm-hmm.
in the present state that it is in. You have a lot of crime and so on, but there's a lot of successful investments taking place in the island. Give
Mm-hmm.
us your analysis of it.
Well, it's still basically oil and oil and gas driven economy, so that the country depends heavily for its foreign exchange earnings on that sector, and the investments in that sector would be by transnational corporations. There's some amount of state investment itself. The government itself has um, companies that are engaged in the production and also sale of gas and oil, but and it is part owner and single and majority shareholder in at least one or two operations where the gas and or oil is converted to energy to produce. Well, there's a private company that now does the steel, but the government was the one that established the steel processing, importing ingots, importing iron ore from Brazil and processing it into steel
Right,
bars and so on,
right,
which which reflects the basically the industrial strategy of Eric Williams. Yes, but to come forward to the present, yes, we remain oil and energy driven economy. And the challenge that we have had in recent years is diversification out of oil. Well, not out of oil, but diversification into other goods and services such that we can start earning foreign exchange in addition to what we have traditionally earned from oil and gas. The problem is that our gas fields have reached their near exhaustion. And of course, there's a push to find more gas, but we just don't have as much gas as we had maybe 30 years ago.
Right, right.
So that they have realized the vulnerability of the country to the decline in oil and gas production, and then to the problem of the volatility in prices of oil and gas on the international market, and the products that are produced from oil and gas, right? So that we face a sort of rocky future, especially now that the world is turning to renewables
Right.
and a reduction in reliance on fossil fuels. So come what may, we just have to diversify. That's the challenge that the present and previous administrations have attempted to treat with, not very successfully, but now it's almost an imperative.
Right.
So one finds that the present government is putting a lot of effort into diversifying, even though it's still committed to continuing this reliance by, for example, seeking to get gas from the fields in Venezuela. And there's a sort of gas field just in the Gulf of Paria.
Right.
And some share of it belongs to Trinidad and Tobago. And the other side of it, of course, belongs to Venezuela. And there was a sort of agreement being worked out with the government of Venezuela under Maduro, such that maybe some of the gas from the Venezuelan side could be available
Right.
for production of the energy-related products, energy-based products in the operations in Trinidad.
Right, right.
I should add that what has happened more recently is that given the challenges that Venezuela has with the United States, and the reluctance of the United States to give a bly to Maduro, especially now that he claims to be re-elected, and that is being contested. And the United States, of course, the government of the United States does not accept that he has won, or that he won the election.
Right.
So that whatever sanctions they've had against Venezuela will continue, or maybe become even more, more challenging.
Challenging. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, but anyhow, the government of Trinidad and Tobago is committed to exploiting the gas that is on this side of the Gulf of Paria, that allows it to, get access to
Revenue.
revenue. Yeah. Sorry for this, a very long-winded.
No, no, no. I understand. Yeah.
But I should say that the advent of Trinidad and Tobago into this heavy industry is really as a result of Eric Williams's strategy in the 1970s, not to just simply export the gas and oil, but rather to go downstream into heavy industry.
Yeah.
So for a while, we were perhaps one of the few countries that, and when you look at Trinidad and Tobago on the map, and Trinidad in particular, is a 2x2 country.
Right.
The name of the country on any big map is bigger than the country itself.
Right.
And we were at one stage one of the biggest producers of, I think, methanol.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the world stage,
Yeah. And a name that is linked with methanol is the gentleman who died recently,
Lawrence Dupre.
Lawrence Dupre.
Yeah.
How there has been some expressions of awkwardness, one may say, or sadness, one may say, in how he met his demise, how he passed and so forth, after being such a wealthy man, a wealthy experience, besides the methanol, besides is the methanol or ethanol, I think, methanol, the
Yes.
insurance situation, how has that had any impact on anybody or in the country or anything?
Well, yes and no. In that, when his operation, his entire Crico empire went found itself in difficulty, and he went to the government to seek support. The implications of the total collapse were so was so disastrous actually to the country if its operation was allowed to collapse, that the government had to step in and provide support. And in effect, the government took control of much of his operations, right? And over time has been cleaning things up and selling off some of the assets and treating with the debts that had been incurred and so on. He was indeed very much an entrepreneur. He inherited an insurance company from his uncle. It was a private insurance company. It was not in the stock exchange or anything like that. And he was rare in that if you understand the sociology of Trinidad, here was a man who would be considered black in our context.
Right.
Because anybody engaged in heavy industry or huge operations in Trinidad would not be part of the African element in society.
Right.
Africans are almost, totally absent in high-level commerce and business in this country.
Right.
But he, having inherited this company from his uncle, he, I suppose, recognized that there was a lot of funds, there were substantial funds available, and he proceeded to get in investments on a substantial scale. He got into real estate development, and perhaps the largest private housing estate in the country was established by the Clico Group.
Right.
Clico, yeah,
Right. Cool.
yeah, yes. Trin City, which is still expanding actually,
Yeah.
but that was his initiative. He did what the other companies, which when we got independence, it was expected that some of the businesses that existed then, that high level business operations, that they would take advantage of the fiscal incentives. Well, that goes back to the period of self government in the 1950s when the PNM came to power. Um, the the government introduced a fiscal regime that was meant to attract the businesses that totally were engaged to almost totally in buying from abroad and selling at home. All right,
Yeah.
they were engaged in distribution and were quite big, had a mass substantial um, financial base just on the basis of distribution.
Yeah.
Williams, following the recommendations of Arthur Lewis, who wrote a paper in the late 1940s, Industrialization of the British West Indies, had proposed that the government should attempt to attract foreign investors onto industrial estates to be established in the Caribbean, including Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
And in those industrial estates could produce goods more cheaply because Trinidad and the rest of the Caribbean had labor rates that were much lower than the UK and the United States, for example, right? But had a quality of labor that was adequate to the task of producing garments, toys, assembly type operations, and so on. And Lewis thought that the Caribbean and clearly businesses in Trinidad that had the kind of resources could become involved along with foreign investors. And actually, Lewis made a remark that with the foreign investors coming in, the locals will learn the tricks of the trade. The local businesses will learn the tricks of the trade. And instead of engaging in just importing and distributing, they will now become involved on the industrial estates
Yeah.
in producing. If even they had to bring in the materials, they would assemble, produce, and export outside the region to the metropolitan countries.
Right.
It didn't quite happen. What happened instead was that the chaps, yes, a few foreign investors came in. Some of the locals got involved on the industrial estates, but what they did was to import things, goods, um, knocked down and assembled to be sold in Trinidad and subsequently when Carifta was formed within Carifta and CARICOM.
Right. Right.
So they never really achieved the, the result, the projection that Lewis had, which is that you would produce and export to metropolitan countries
Right. Right.
for an exchange outside of this region.
Right. Right.
Never quite happened.
Right. Right.
So come Dupree now decides to get into methanol. The government had already established the Point Lisa's industrial estate, which is substantial,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a substantial investment on the part of the state because, again, Williams recognizing that the local investors, local businesses were not really up to the task of industrializing the country, but engage in really bringing things in to assemble and to sell in Trinidad and in CARICOM. not involved in real, you know, establishing a serious industry.
Right.
He actually in the late 1960s um, put out a white paper on public sector participation. But at that time, the government, the country did not have money. Williams did not have money. But when they they, they had the Arab-Israeli conflict in the early 1970s, well, so you had a conflict, and then Gaddafi in Libya
Mm-hmm.
decided that he was going to get better um, better pricing for the oil that they produced, and these Arab countries, Middle Eastern countries produce. He's going to get a better price,
Right.
and pushed up the price, and the industrial countries, the European countries, and the Americans found themselves just having to pay.
Right. Right. Right.
So,
Right.
so the price of oil just went up,
Pick
and
up. Right.
yes, OPEC had been formed, and OPEC now became the decision maker in respect of what prices of oil will be from one time period to another.
Right.
So although Trinidad did not join OPEC, we benefited from the increased prices for oil and gas
Right.
and shortage of oil. And it meant that the government of Trinidad and Tobago found itself with substantial revenues from the oil that was being produced in Trinidad.
Right.
And Williams decided that he would not just simply export the oil, but rather take some of the revenue and establish an industrial estate. Steel being one of the products that was first being produced, but also there was furfural and urea and other
Right.
things that are downstream of oil that Williams did that. So the state was involved, but Williams Williams' expectation is that some of the local businesses would at some stage get involved too.
Right. Right.
You know, the Neelan Massey's and the
Right.
what was then McInerney Allstons and all these guys. But they never did.
Never did. Right. Right. Right.
And the one who did was Lawrence Dupre with Click.
Right. 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 Wow.
So so it means that in terms of the sociology of Trinidad, that in terms of big business, um, Dupre Dupre's group ended up being a big player
Right.
in playing in a league that it was expected that the others would have been into.
Right. 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 Yeah. Boy. But
And
well,
I don't think he was forgiven for, he was never forgiven for that because
I would agree. I would agree. I imagine so. And
yeah,
knowing Trinidad, knowing
yeah,
Trinidad and the Trinidadian.
yeah.
Well, listen.
Uh,
Finally, where do you see us today? Um, you know, okay, we have a lot of crime and you know, and now with the situation in the Middle East, with all of this, and the U.S. and the potential of Israel, and where do you see us in all of this milieu? Do you see anything? Do you see us advancing? And then, in addition to all of that, we have a diaspora of Trinidadians and so on, and Caribbean people who are active outside of the islands.
mhm, mhm.
Where do you see all of this in a nutshell?
Well, there are possibilities. It's just whether the leadership can can seize the opportunity to make some things happen. All right,
Yeah.
having such a substantial diaspora abroad has its own benefits in that you have people with skills and knowledge and growing. So so it's its professional, technical, human resources is not is are not only what is resident in Trinidad and Tobago, but some of it is resident abroad
Yes, yeah.
and can be accessible, including like your own brother, it can be accessible for development projects in Trinidad, can be accessible if more of them become entrepreneurial and set up businesses that can be importing goods from the home country into the metropolitan country,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is what you see, which is what you see with the Koreans and others,
Right, right.
right? So that some of that can happen. So the diaspora can be a source of for penetration of these markets there in the metropole,
Yeah.
insofar as they can be buying from home to sell in the
US.
country. Yes, they could also be a source of professional um, manpower for developments in Trinidad, people coming back for short or long periods to work in operations here. And some of it could be done, some of the work now can be done in real time,
Right.
given what's happening with technology, etc. All right, so they don't necessarily have to be resident in Trinidad to be working in Trinidad with a Trinidad company.
Right.
They'll be resident elsewhere. So there's that. But there's also the matter of our businesses that are located here in Trinidad really getting on board with producing not only for the domestic market, but also for the international market,
Right.
which is very challenging, but we have to get up to speed with it.
Right. Yep. Yep.
And we want to see food processing, for example, um, the range of possibilities with food processing and processing things that we take for granted. We don't have orchards except for a limited number of products,
Yes.
but there are a number of things that we can have orchard development. Just think mangoes. I mean, in your recollection, do you know any part of Trinidad where there are mango orchards
No.
or avocado orchards?
Right.
Avocados, I mean, uh, um, there's a substantial market both in Trinidad and elsewhere
Right.
for avocado,
Right.
right? So there are a number of areas that we need to research and identify possibilities, and some of that could happen, including in agriculture,
Right.
but in a range of other areas, that we can engage in export processing, and the government to some extent is committed to doing some of this. They setting up special zones where certain things can come in and be produced and to go back out. Not 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 the ideal kind of business, but clearly, if you can earn income and you can employ people in anything that is,
Right. Ralph,
above,
right. We're running out of time here on my timer. Um,
mm-hmm,
I just want to thank you so much for
mm-hmm.
this discourse, and I hope we can continue the discussion on another occasion,
Sure.
and continue this because, there are some wonderful ideas you've brought up, and I will try to expound on them a little more.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
so you take care, man, and be well, eh?
All the best. Yeah. Take care. All the best. Thanks.
All
Yeah.
right. I've been
Take care.
speaking with Dr. Ralph Henry, who is a member of the Kyrie Consultants in Trinidad and Tobago. This is Ron Martin. Caribbeana continues.